of view. The economy on a global basis is like a $91 trillion. China is 18.1%, and I think they're going to do extremely well, and that particularly the consumer sector, and that's very positive. The United States is 25% or 24.1%, and that's because, in my judgment, the consumer, a long runway for housing, a long runway for the automobile sector, which has an impact on manufacturing. And then I've seen some with the notion of a vaccine, Tyler, that we're going to have travel and leisure come back, and that'll help the Boeing and their ecosystem. So there are a lot of pluses. There clearly, what Rick talked about is you need a element of support for a certain part of the population, particularly if you're dealing in restaurants, if you're small businesses, and that has to be forthcoming, and it'll be a great Christmas present if the politicians can get their act together. But stepping back, we need an infrastructure bill. We had a conference, our 34th to 5th on the vendors to Boeing and Airbus, but we also had one on pump valve and motors, and we had the civil engineers come in, and they pointed out that our bridges, 500,000 plus in the United States, 40% have D- to D+ ratings. So we need inland waterway. We will need bridges. And finally, we hope to get some visibility with the current administration, the new administration coming in. And that's going to be very helpful to infrastructure. And then we have to worry about the climate and the whole notion of renewable energy, wind, solar, battery storage, transmission. So a lot of pluses. Clearly, we need support for the working person who's not got a job in the short term with regards to travel and leisure-related businesses. Yeah, I think anybody who's driven across the Cross-Bronx Expressway, as I know you're familiar with it, would agree with you. We need better darn infrastructure across the board, whether it's bridges or highways or... Well, it's also the railroads and also transportation. Yeah. There's a lot to be done. And but the other one, Rick, Tyler, that I did not mention was broadband. We have to do what they did in the 1930s when we did plain old telephone service, when we did utilities in rural America. And so broadband is another area that we need to put money in infrastructure, and they're doing it now. Yeah, I was gonna mention utilities, water systems, power grids, broadband, all of that. We've been leapfrogged in many cases by other countries who didn't have the sort of installed infrastructure that we do, and so they had, in a sense, an advantage that they could do that. You've mentioned so many areas here across the economy. In the short term, as the economy comes back, it sounds like you're pointing to some sort of cyclical companies in the automobile. You talk about automobile has a long way to run. Construction, housing has a long way to run. It sounds like you're suggesting that that's where you're finding some of the more exciting plays right now. Am I understanding correctly? Yeah, there's no question that we looked at in the cyclicals. I started my career almost 55 years ago as a sell-side analyst covering autos, farm equipment, conglomerates. So we understand growth and we understand cyclicality. And basically, how bad is bad? How long is it going to be bad? And then how good is good? For example, there's a company up in Milwaukee that we've been following that's gone from 20 to 100, 20 to 100, 20 to 100. The stock was 20. The analysts were estimating $1.80 for the year. They came in with $2.25. Nobody was calling on it. The stock is now 40. What will make it even a $100 stock over the next 2 or 3 years? That's what we try to figure out. We think we figured it out. And the same thing with a lot of companies. So let's look. Yesterday, I called a company in Richmond, Virginia called Tredegar. I was the only one that called them in the afternoon after they announced that they're paying out $5.97. Why? Nobody follows the company. So the point is that there's many unloved companies that we like to focus on, and our clients already own those. But the other area that I didn't talk about, Tyler, is the whole notion of travel and leisure, but sports betting and sports are coming back. When you have a vaccine, you're going to have a year from now football without all of these lockdowns. You're going to have basketball. You're going to have betting on these things. And what companies are doing well? You take a guy like Barry Diller, who's making a ton of money when he went into the digital world, buying a piece of MGM. You take a guy like Sue Kim, who's a broadcasting guy that took on a company called Twin River, changed the name to Bally, cut a deal with Sinclair. Sinclair owns regional sports networks. They are doing terrific. You got a company in Reno, Nevada that took over Caesars, changed the name from Eldorado's. And these guys are brilliant. And they bought William Hill. They bought William Hill, and they're merging that in the U.S., and they have the infrastructure. So those type of things. Now, that catalyst, the betting on sports came about in part because of what happened with the Supreme Court in May of 2018. Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act was thrown out. You can now bet. That's a terrific new business that's going to unfold. So we get excited about these things, and we're focused on it with a microscope and with a telescope. So what's going on short term? So that's what we do, Tyler, every day.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.